Welcome to the Channel 7 News Studio with the special documentary on the New Deal presented by the News Travel Agency.
So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Born into a wealthy, political, prominent family in Hyde Park, New York, FDR seemed to have been born for success. FDR began his political career as Assistant Secretary of Navy under President Woodrow Wilson. He ran for Vice President in 1920 on the Democratic Party losing ticket, and finally served as Governor of New York before ascending to the presidency. However, following the election of 1921, tragedy struck as Roosevelt contracted polio, ultimately losing use of his legs. However, despite being confined to a wheelchair, Roosevelt gained a new, indomitable strength of character that would serve him well in the arduous years to come.
During the election of 1932, FDR defeated standing Republican President Herbert Hoover in a landslide, 472 electoral votes to 59. FDR's inaugural address alone was able to rekindle the flame of hope in the American people. FDR assuaged the guilt of many as he told them the American people have not failed, assuring the American population that the Depression was not their fault. He asked for an augmentation of presidential powers in order to wage a war against this depression, promising to combat the economic crisis as if it were a foreign country invading the states. With this address, FDR began an intense relief program to alleviate the country of its economic security.
The first major component of the first New Deal was the Agriculture Adjustment Act, or the AAA. Aiming to establish national control on crop production, the AAA offered subsidies to farmers who limited the production of specific crops. These subsidies would be funded by taxing the processors of the crop. Though farmers agreed to reduce agriculture output in order to drive up prices, they had to kill millions of baby livestock and plow under planted crops. This succeeded in driving up crop prices, but outraged Americans who saw the AAA as a waste of food. The Supreme Court eventually found the AAA unconstitutional, as it was unfair to tax the processors of specific crops, and not the producers of the crops.
I can assure you that it is safer for you to keep your money in a reopened bank than to keep it under the mattress.
In the 1999 congressional session that followed the Emergency Banking Relief Bill, Roosevelt began creating numerous relief programs to combat the Depression. Known as the first 100 days of the New Deal, Roosevelt passed a flood of legislations. He was advised by his wife Eleanor Roosevelt, who was very progressive-minded and represented the conscience of the New Deal, as well as a group of trusted advisors and brilliant minds known as the Brain Council. This legislation focused on reliving the populace of their property, helping the struggling economy recover, and reforming economic principles to prevent such depression from occurring again.
The first major component of the first New Deal was Agricultural Adjustment Act, or the AAA. Aiming to establish national control on crop production, the AAA offered subsidies to farmers who limited the production of specific crops. These subsidies would be funded by taxing the processors of the crops. Although farmers agreed to reduce agricultural output in order to drive up prices, they had to kill millions of baby livestock and plow under planted crops. Succeeded in driving up crop prices, but outraged Americans who saw the AAA as a waste of food. The Supreme Court eventually found the AAA unconstitutional as it was unfair to tax the processors of specific crops and not the processors of the crops.
The second component of the first New Deal was the National Industrial Recovery Act of the NIRA. The NIRA advocated the cooperation of businesses in creating industry-wide codes. This was made on the belief that destructive competition was contributing to the poor state of the economy. The NIRA also gave workers the right to unionize. Though the NIRA was voluntary, businesses who operated within industry-wide codes could fly the Blue Eagle, the symbol of the administration that ran the program, the NRA. The government urged consumers to boycott companies that did not fly the Blue Eagle. Using an old-fashioned definition of interstate commerce, the Supreme Court struck down the NIRA, finding that it was extending federal power past its constitutional boundaries.
Good. Final component of the first New Deal were the relief programs, namely the Public Works Administration. The PWA put federal funds into numerous construction projects, thus employing millions of men in the construction field. Not only did the PWA create jobs and prime the economy with federal funds, the construction project helped promote economic developments by building infrastructures, especially in undeveloped areas.
Finally, on June 16, 1933, the 100-day special session of Congress adjourned. Though the first New Deal had drawn to a close, it left a profound impact on the lives of Americans. As the New Deal programs were implemented, unemployment rates fell and the number of businesses failures reduced, more banks became operational. Though FDR's swift and bold actions, America had rebounded from a near economic collapse. In 100 short days, a panicked nation, broken both economically and spiritually, had transformed into a country that was organized, re-inspired, and ready to combat the challenges ahead. However, the economy was far from healthy, and FDR's work was far from done. Following a second inaugural address, Roosevelt began working on a new plan, this time to rectify the languished economy and to reshape economic policy to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again.